Yinting Chu, welcome
Hey,
to my Corona.
hello, hello, hello.
How are you doing tonight?
Doing great. It's 5 p.m. and I'm doing a fast today, so my head is going crazy, but also at the same time super clear. So it's
Awesome.
perfect timing for doing this.
Awesome. So, I don't even know how to describe you. You are just, in my mind, when I think of you, I just think of the most awesome friend. So, that's kind of how I know you the best. But maybe for the audience, they might be interested in the fact that you are a PhD in biology. What kind of biology, Chu?
Bioengineering. Um, I study mostly stem cells and tissue engineering. But my heart is always in science and that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
I've been doing that's been what I've been doing for the past 30 years is studying science.
Yeah. I thought, who better but to help us understand what's going on. I've got a boatload of questions, and so what I'd like to do is just why don't we talk a little bit more about yourself and your background, and then I've got some questions, and maybe we could talk about like what we can do. Another thing that's awesome about you is that you're always looking for solutions, and you're not problem oriented. You're solution oriented. So I thought
Mm.
maybe we could spend some time brainstorming about what we could do, and what our listeners can do to um, turn this situation into a positive. Believe it or not.
That's super important. Yeah, let's
Yeah,
not fall into the mentality of being a victim in this situation. And I think
perfect.
the purpose of our conversation is to find a way for us ourselves to be more healthy, stronger, and also look beyond the crisis and figure out what we can do right now, and also maybe 6 months and year after the crisis.
All right.
Because there's
Well,
gonna be a lot of impact on everyone in every aspect. Yeah.
for sure. So don't freak out, but I'm going to scratch my nose now.
Oh no.
Yes, but my hands are clean. I just washed them. So can you get infected through the video?
Uh, we don't have any scientific evidence to suggest that yet, but who knows?
All right. So tell us, what was it that interested you in science, and what had you pursue a degree, a PhD in molecular biology?
Bioengineering, and that's an interesting question. I was actually thinking about that the other
Is
day,
there, is
and
there a
I
difference
think
between bioengineering and molecular biology?
there is some similarity to it. There is some aspect that overlaps, but the basic are different. But it's not that important.
Okay.
It's at the end of the day, it's just science and what we know and what we don't know, and be humble about it, right? Yeah, what got me on this journey was actually a cartoon I was watching when I was younger, and it was about this you know uh, big robotic uh, uh, giant robotic thing that saved the world, right? And behind all that, right, I mean, there's these pilots who can operate these big gigantic machine, but there was also a mastermind behind it who's a doctor, right? He's a guy who manufactured and designed all that. So, and when I was little, I was like, oh, I want to be like that. I want to be like that mastermind behind it, who can make these awesome things. So and
What
I
was
was
the
good
name
at.
of the cartoon?
I don't remember. It was so long ago when I was very little. Yeah,
Was it Chinese or Japanese?
Japanese. Yeah, yeah. Most of the cartoons I watch are from Japan, and yeah,
Is
and
this
then
does this ring a bell?
yeah, yes,
This was Ultraman.
that's not the one,
That's
but
not it. But all
right,
right.
but and I was good at math, and I was good at science, so it just automatically just got me onto this journey. Yeah. But recently I want to switch. I want to adapt to a different mentality. I want to become a pilot. I don't want to be the scientist anymore.
Okay.
I would love to be the pilot that operate this gigantic machine and save the world, but that's a different story.
All right. Well, maybe that, you'll learn some more MMA and just be able to fight viruses with your fists.
Yes, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So, can you give us what your perspective is, and having a scientific background? What when, let's say, people were talking about it in January, were you alarmed early, or were you taken by surprise like many of our audience?
I was alarmed early because I'm from Taiwan, and about maybe 10 years ago, we survived SARS. Right, it killed many people, many doctors and nurses, and it was affecting the whole country. And back then, I was actually in United States in grad school, and I remember I was trying to buy these N95 masks and send it back to Taiwan because my dad is a physician,
Yeah.
so he's got on the front line dealing with patients. So I was worried for him, so I was able to got a few boxes of N95 and the goggles and send it back to him. Yeah, and the funny thing is he still have some of those N95 masks, but I think it expired. But I want to go over like some facts, right? The basics is number one, coronavirus is a virus, it's not a bacteria, right? So there's no antibiotics doesn't work, right? It's not a bacterial infectious disease, it's from virus. So there's no antibodies to deal with this. I mean, there's no drugs that can kill these viruses at this point. And I think it will affect, based on the numbers I'm looking at, conservatively, it will affect about, it will infect about 1/3 of the population in U.S. Right, so that's about 100 million people. And half of these infected individual will have to get into the healthcare system, because the symptoms are so bad they have to go see a doctor. And about 1% of these individuals will die. That's a conservative number, so that's about 500,000 people, right? And that's assuming we're doing all these social distancing or safer at home or safe at home measures. Otherwise, anyone can get affected or infected by this.
So let's say, for the sake of argument, we didn't do any of this social distancing. Then we're looking at 3 million die, right?
Possibly,
Yeah.
possibly, yeah.
Right.
And that's a lot of people.
A million's a lot of
Right.
people too, right?
Right, a million or half. I mean, it's all a lot of people, and there will be like people we know. Some might be our loved ones.
Yep.
And the other thing is, it looks like this virus really affects anyone. It doesn't matter where you come from, what race you are, even age group. And there are more and more cases showing that even if you're healthy, that you take care of your body, you go work out, you pay attention to your nutrition, it still affects you, right? There are cases now, some of my healthy friends who, have a lean body without any known disease or chronic disease, they still get infected. So there's this virus doesn't discriminate.
Have you heard? I've been reading some articles. I don't know how strong they are, about different genetics being, like, they've noticed in Italy a lot more of the same family got infected, which you would think so, but more of them died. Like, there's more people with the same genes dying more than would the numbers would otherwise suggest.
Yeah, I think there, I was listening to a podcast. I forgot whose, but they're saying that even different blood types might be affected, right? Like type A are most, you have the highest opportunity to get this virus, and type O probably a little better. And also age group, like children. Like I think one of the only good news is that the children under 12, they might get infected, but they don't show a strong symptoms. So a lot of them are asymptomatic, but they're still infectious. So they can get it without showing any symptoms and still pass it on to their parents or grandparents or their friends. And in certain age group or people with different habits like smoking um, are more severely affected by this. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, so you were saying that is there more facts you want to go through?
Um, that's kind of right now. Yeah. I mean, these are the basic of the basics. So we have a baseline to talk about things. Yeah.
Okay. So, one of the things that I find a little strange, so there's a lot of discussion about flattening the curve, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is, at least the way I've heard it explained, the reason you want to flatten the curve is that you want to get the number of people that need ICU care to
Mm-hmm.
be within the bounds of what the health system can handle.
Yes.
Is that your understanding of flattening the curve?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the thing that I'm trying to understand, like, you know, I've read a lot about it. I've heard all the facts that you're talking about. The thing that's not really clear to me is it realistic to say we can flatten the curve to get below our capacity? Because even if we stick to where we're at, we've got so many people and so few ICU beds compared to how many people we have in the country that we don't have nearly the capacity. So we'd have to flatten the curve well beyond where we're flattening it, and it would
Mm-hmm.
take we just can't hit the capacity. I don't know how to visually show that, but you understand what I'm getting at?
Yes.
So what is the idea behind flattening the curve? Is it buying us time while we fill Madison Square Garden and Staples Center with beds,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
while we manufacture the ventilators or whatever it is that we need? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I think the main idea of flattening the curve is one is to buy more time for maybe a cure to become up, like a vaccine or a drug that will cure the disease, right? And it takes a long time. And also is to buying space, right? Because if everyone gets sick around the same time, as you can see in certain part of Italy, the doctors have to make decision on who they not to treat. It is very sad. It is devastating to even think about in a modern world like we live in. And you go to the hospital, someone goes to the hospital, and the doctor is like, you know, we just don't have enough resource, and based on your age and health group, you got to go home and die. We're not gonna be able to help you. As that's devastating. um, and so I think that's the main idea of that. We are already seeing that in New York, right? They don't have enough bed, they don't have enough ventilators, or even doctors and nurses to take care of these people, and the doctors and nurses don't have enough supplies to protect themselves, right? They don't have enough masks, goggles, and isolation suit that they should be wearing. um, so we're already seeing that is it's not coming, it's already here. Yeah.
Right. I mean, in New York is there, but yeah. I mean, as you know, my mom's in a retirement home, and I haven't visited her in, was it now, 3 weeks, maybe longer, because they don't allow any visitors. First, they were cutting down the visiting hours, and they were screening everyone who came to visit,
Hmm.
And a few days later, they just stopped doing that. And they said, nobody visits. The only way you can get into the facility is if your loved one is actively dying.
Hmm.
And then they'll make, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the truth behind that is because they really don't have a good way to screen people who are sick, right?
Right.
Or who have the virus. I mean, the scary thing about the coronavirus is you can be
Asymptomatic.
contagious
Yeah.
without having any symptoms,
Yep.
without having fever. You can just be having it at the first few days of it, and you're already contagious.
Which is why
So
they
we
shut it
don't
down.
really have,
Yeah.
right? We don't have any effective way of to test who is sick or not.
Yep.
So that's why they're stopping all the visitor to protect the seniors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense. But I don't know how, when I'll see my mom again, because
yeah,
until we've got enough tests that I could actually, let's say all goes well and I have no symptoms and I don't get infected, and then I want to go visit my mom, I need a test to go that I'm clean.
mm-hmm.
The other worrying thing is I got an email that someone on campus was diagnosed with a
Mm.
virus. So
Wow,
yeah.
yeah.
So I mean that
So
the average age there is something like 90. My mom's
yeah,
92, right?
yeah,
So
that's tough.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I think the next thing we're all waiting for is a test kit that maybe can maybe like a pregnancy test, right? You know the result in 5 to 10 minutes. I think the best out there is maybe 15 minutes in South Korea. They have a kit like that, and
yeah,
they have mobile station that you can drop in and have yourself tested.
right. Swab and yeah,
Yeah, make it doing a nose swab, and you have the result in 15 minutes. And that's also, it's really affecting everyone. I mean, all the travels are halted, and people are scared to fly. It affects me on a personal level that I was gonna head home to Taiwan to visit my family. They're just taking a long vacation there, and I couldn't go because all the, well, another thing is I think like United States are kind of not aware of this crisis, soon enough. So people went from, and it's just my observation, from a lot of people went from denial to freaking out over the weekend. And that's why I couldn't buy the tickets. I was looking at all my flights and it's all clear because no one's flying. And all of a sudden, all the flights were booked, because all the students that's not going to school, now they're heading home. Right.
it was
And,
when the NBA canceled. That's what
right.
shifted it. So seriously, uh,
Right,
yeah,
right. It's a big deal. It's like, holy shit, if NBA shuts down, like what else is important? Right. And now, even if I go home, I have to be a quarantine for 2 weeks. That's the measurement that Taiwan is taking. Like everyone come from a foreign country, you have to be a quarantine for 14 days by yourself before you can have any human interaction with others. I think that's a good idea, but it's just tough on everyone, tough on
for
me,
sure.
on my family. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so let's say here's the other thing that I'm trying to get clear on. When I read about people that have gotten the disease and they've gotten better, so it's not like bacterial infections or some infections where you get polio vaccine once, you're immune for basically the rest of your life with maybe a booster.
Mhm.
Related COVID disease, related viruses, they've had some where it's longer, others where you're fully immune for a year, and then you can catch it again.
Mhm.
Can you explain the difference between why some things you'd be immune for your life and others you wouldn't?
Well, it's like when we get vaccinated with the flu shot, um, you will be, I think you will be immune for a long time after you get the flu shot with that particular strain of virus, because these viruses, they will mutate, they'll become something else. They go to other animal, they go to other species, they go to other race, and they just mutate. That's what they do, right? They mutate to survive, and they'll come back the next year looking a little differently. That's why even if you get the flu shot, say last year, you can still be infected by a new flu virus, a new strain this year. Um,
So are you,
so
so the strain that they have now, in
mhm.
theory, you should still stay immune to that strain. The problem is a year
Yes,
from now, there'll be a new strain.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. That makes
So
sense.
that's one thing. Another assumption that hasn't been really being tested is, can you get infected for the second time by the coronavirus? I'm talking about the same strain, right? Nobody knows because this is relatively new, right? And I've searched the internet, and of course, like when you search internet, there's always two sides of things. And some people think you'll be immune. Like once you catch it and recover, you'll be good. But there are also people saying that no, you can catch it the second time, and if you catch it for the second time, it's even worse, right? But nobody knows because this is too new for us to look at. So I think earlier this month or last month, UK was saying that they have this plan to let everyone have it,
To
right?
build the
Just
herd
like we're not
immunity.
gonna,
Yeah.
right, to build the herd immunity. But that's a big assumption based on what we just talked about. Like one, that yes, everyone catch it, and you don't even need everyone to catch it for the virus to stop spreading. Assuming that if you have 70% of the population that has immunity to this, it will generally stop spreading, just like vaccines, right?
Right.
Just if 70% of the populations are vaccinated, you can probably stop the spread of the disease.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a big assumption, right? I say, oh, 70% of the UK population has a disease and they recover, then they can stop the spread. But that's nobody knows, because nobody knows if you can catch it for the second time
Right.
or that kind of stuff.
Well,
So
yeah. So let me just share this. This is one dashboard that I use. Um, and it's got the different, you can see this. Okay.
I'm not seeing anything. Okay, now I am.
You see it. So,
Started screen sharing.
yeah, you can
Okay.
see it. Yep.
Yeah.
So this is actually something that a high school student added, and
Mm-hmm.
and he's using the data from the CDC and other sources.
Mm-hmm.
So you see right now there's 472,000 confirmed cases. I first started looking at this when there was 100,000,
Mm-hmm.
and it was less than 100 countries around the world that had it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to put China aside because personally I don't really trust the numbers coming out of there. For all I know, it's
Mm-hmm.
accurate, but you look at Italy and the number of confirmed cases, what the changes are today, how many people have died, and you got the 9,000 that are recovered.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, we're up to 65,000.
Mm-hmm.
California, it seems uh, we've got we've got 3,000 cases compared to New York. California seems to be growing much slower.
Mm-hmm.
But what I keep watching is the number of people that have recovered. So in Italy, there's
Mm-hmm.
already 9,000 people that have recovered. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm wondering is, do you start to see, you know, can we learn from them? Um, I don't know.
In what
Well,
sense
in
can
the
we learn
sense
from
like,
them?
well, okay, can we test people who've recovered and start to see, okay, you know, I don't know, like I read blood transfusion from somebody who's already had it could treat. I've read some study that they were looking at that. Would that help someone, you know, to have the antibodies? I'm going to stop
Mm-hmm.
sharing this, but
Yeah. Well, I think one thing we need to pay attention to while looking at these numbers is how valid they are, right? Um, I I think just California alone, the numbers are underestimated, right? This is the numbers that's shown here is actually a lot lower than what's the real number out there, and nobody knows what the real number is, and a lot of it is because we don't have enough test kits.
No, I totally agree.
Right, right. So the number that's showing up there is you know, I don't think you can see a trend, um, but I don't think it's accurate at all, because I personally know a lot of people around me who are showing symptoms, and they're not able to get tested.
you know people in California.
Yeah, who actually have the symptoms. I know a few that got tested, but also people who show symptoms and are not able to get the help they want, you know, to be tested to confirm whether they have it or not. And we also have uh, cases where students from Taiwan who were diagnosed with flu in the United States and flew back to Taiwan, and now they test everyone who arrived from USA uh, at the airport. You have to do a nose swab, and he was confirmed that he has the COVID-19 virus, right? So I think the number is overwhelmingly underestimated right now. And the reason that we see a high number in New York is because they are able to get the most test kit
No,
in New
I
York.
totally get
Yeah,
that. I'm
yeah, yeah,
glad that
yeah,
you said that. I wasn't.
yeah.
I'm. What I'm saying about California, it's totally right. So, for example,
Mm-hmm,
if there were enough test kits, I would definitely test myself. I
mm-hmm,
have no symptoms, but every time I had a cough in January, or now and
mm-hmm.
again, when I'll cough, I'm like psychotic. Is there something wrong?
Me too.
I'll every couple of days I'll look, do I have a fever? What's going on? Right now,
Mm-hmm,
like I don't really show any symptoms, but for peace of mind, I would definitely test myself. But
mm-hmm,
obviously, there's no reason to test me at this point, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, so for sure, there's many more. And in New York, it's getting. If you look at the emergency rooms, you look at the hospitals in New York, they're definitely getting the overwhelm. And it's. I have a friend in New York that has it. His wife is a physician, and
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so yeah, I definitely know people. I don't know anyone in LA that has it, but um, you
I know a few. Yeah,
is there anyone
I know a
you,
couple
without
more.
giving a name, is there anyone that you and I both know together that have it?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
you'll tell me
yeah,
afterwards.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I definitely believe that the numbers are, but the reason I was going and looking at the numbers is what I find so interesting is with, thousands, like in the California number, we have one person that's recovered. That's got to be low as well, right?
Yes, yes,
And in New
yes.
York, we have 0 that have been recovered, and out of 30,000 that are confirmed cases, it's less than that. So obviously, there's a very big lag in reporting. But
Mm-hmm,
the thing I'm trying to make sense of is the things that we're being told to do make perfect sense. Let's stop all the movement. This is a very serious disease. There's a lot we don't know about it. We got to stay in place. The end game isn't very clear to me, like how flattening the
mm-hmm,
curve will actually help. If flattening the curve
mm-hmm,
will actually bring the capacity online, if there will actually be a cure, if everything will happen, great. The thing that I fear and I'm kind of confused about is, are we just delaying our problem? We're going to have the same exact problem, but we're going to have it in 6 months when everybody's poor, instead of
mm-hmm,
having it now when people are in better shape. You get what
mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I think I thought about this too, but I think what we need to think about is, what if we don't do this? If we don't flatten the curve, what's the consequence, right? And the consequence will be that, like we talked about earlier, that most people will get it, right? Maybe 90% of the population will have it, and you'll be seeing the same problem and massive death around us. So instead of 30% of people population that gets it, and now 90%,
No,
right?
no,
It
no.
will,
I get
right,
that. What I'm saying is sustainable.
right.
Can we do this for a year?
We don't know. It looks like it will go a lot longer than we expected. You know,
Right.
I think this will last for another maybe 3 to 6 months, that we have to be in lockdown, not lockdown, but just social distancing and working online, working on Zoom. I've been using Zoom every day. Just we might all have to adapt to this new lifestyle, right?
Right.
And I don't think coronavirus is not gonna go away. It might come back. It can
Yeah.
become like the flu, come back every year. And what do we do with it, right? And one of the most obvious, so
Are we having some internet problems? Yep.
I think
Yep.
we're still there.
I'm still here.
I'm okay. I can hear you now.
Yeah, one of us is
So
having internet problems. That makes sense. I mean, I have a very high internet speed. I'm sure you do as well, but I think all of California is on the internet right now. So
yeah, everyone is on internet right now. So um yeah, what were we talking about?
uh,
Yeah, flattening the curve, right? So
yep,
yeah, it looks like it. I think every country agrees that's probably the best solution right now. Um, um, well, well, okay, I'll tell you what like Taiwan is doing, because I think Taiwan is one of the country is doing really well in this crisis.
yep,
Um, some fact that we're next to China, right? And then we have tens of thousands of people traveling between Taiwan and China on a daily basis, you know.
yep,
So when this hit, the world kind of predicted that Taiwan will be a country that will be super affected by this, and everyone will get sick, and it will be the most severe that's out there, right? But we're not. We're actually doing really well compared to countries that's far, far away from China. And we really have so much traffic between Taiwan and China, and our economy also relies heavier on the trade with China also. And we have people from Taiwan that live in China and their family in Taiwan, so they travel back and forth, that kind of stuff. But we're doing really well. The school still going. We still have toilet paper there. And it looks like we're not shutting down the subway or metro or bus or public transportation. um, so I think what we can learn uh, from what's happening there is, well, number one, like, because we survived SARS, so everyone is super alerted when this kind of thing happens, right?
SARS was a
So we
blessing
took
in
on,
disguise for you, in a
yeah,
way.
in a
It was
way,
horrible at the time, but it prepared you
mhm,
for this.
yeah, prepared us for this. So um, and I think it's all about public health, right? The measurement that the government is taking. So a few things that we're doing differently than here is, well, number one is a relatively small country, so the government was able to track like everyone that got sick, how they got sick, who they got in touch with, on what location, on what meeting, on what flight, and they will actively reach out to those around them and have them pay attention, right? Even have them come and do a test to see they have it, or ask them to self quarantine. And another thing that we're doing differently than United States is people wear masks. That's kind of an Asian thing. If you've been to Tokyo or other Asian cities, like big metropolitan cities, that you notice that people wear masks during flu season. And I know there are many experts that say it doesn't help, it doesn't work, but the number shows it works. There is a graph that shows the growth rate of this disease in country that wear masks and that the one that doesn't. You can see a lot of these countries, the curve is super flat compared to European country or United States, where some people think wearing it's almost a taboo to wear a facial mask because that shows you're sick. But the thing with coronavirus is you can be infectious, you can be contagious when you have no symptom, right? So when you go into a supermarket, how do you know the person standing next to you is not sick,
You
right?
don't.
Or you don't. And
The
how do you?
only place I haven't been social distancing is getting my groceries. Now
All
they're
right.
better. They've set up lines. They've set up the markers on the ground where people are
Mm-hmm.
keeping their distance. But that's the
Right.
only place where I feel the least safe is getting my groceries.
For sure. So for that reason, like these days, I like to go to like Asian supermarket because a lot of people in there actually wear masks. I don't, but knowing that, hey, you know, they are taking the measurement to protect themselves or others, it's a good idea. So for instance, in this year, because everyone was wearing masks early on because of the, you know, like we
The
know when
experience.
China has it, Taiwan will have it. So everyone started wearing masks. And even the flu, the cases of flu affected patients going down dramatically. You know, so it really shows it helps. Does it help you 100%? Does it stop 100% of the viruses that come in? No, but 70% is better than 0%, right? Because how does the virus get in? It gets into your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. And when you wear a mask, it covers the two major inlets of where the virus can come in. So I don't understand why a lot of experts saying that, oh, that's, you know, doesn't help, doesn't work. I think part of the reason is they want to save the mask for the healthcare and people who are in the healthcare system. I think that's super important too, right? So by doing social distancing, we're actually helping the doctors
But
and nurses.
the problem is that when they don't tell you the truth, you stop believing the sources, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you tell the mask doesn't help, and then later like, oh yeah, everyone wear masks,
Mm-hmm.
then whatever you're saying next will stop being believed. You got to tell people the truth.
Yeah, and learn from other countries who are, say, 2 or 3 months ahead of you, and look at the data, and the data shows that it fucking works, you know. So but the sad thing is even if they tell you to wear a mask, like where can you find mask right now?
Right.
There's
I've been
no
looking.
places of, right, they don't
Yep.
have masks,
Yep.
right? But I remember I flew back to United States on January or February, the beginning of February, and uh, you know, like like foreigners, when I was in Taiwan, like foreigners or white people are known not to wear masks, right? It was funny, in the airport everyone was wearing masks, and they're wearing like these high-end N95 masks. Well, I was wearing like a normal surgical mask, which is also maybe 70% efficient compared to an N95. And on the flight, everyone was wearing masks. And when I arrived at LAX, almost all the workers are wearing masks, you know, but the custom officials they're not yet. I wonder if they are now, because they're the one who need to protect themselves from all these people who are potentially sick flying into this country, and so and they stop spreading it to other people who are healthy. So that works. Washing your hand works. Hand sanitizer doesn't work as well as washing your hand with soaps.
Hope. Right.
Yeah, because hand sanitizers, you know, I've seen they done like experiment. You know, it just doesn't work as well as washing your hands.
With soap.
So don't freak out. Don't freak out about not being able to buy like
Sanitizer.
ethanol's
Yes.
sanitizer. Just wash your hand. Everyone's got soap. Just do that, and wash your face. Don't touch your face, you know,
So
because
let's talk about the don't touch your face. Is that just when your hands are not clean or all the time?
well, let's say you go out to the supermarket and you have viruses landed on your face, right? Unless you come home and you wash your face, and to get rid of the virus, even you have a clean hand, you can transfer the virus from here to your nose, to your ears, to your eyes, to your mouth, that kind of thing. You know, these are little things, but I think in the long run, it helps. And I'm just talking about what I see happen in Taiwan that seems to have the whole situation under control a lot better on an individual level. And the government is doing a lot too. Government is making sure that most family have access to masks. Uh, on a weekly basis, so you can actually
Get new
uh,
masks.
yeah, with your ID, they can track who's got how many and how many people in your family, that kind of stuff. So everyone can get a supply of masks. Not a lot, but just enough. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, I bet you, 2 years from now, everyone in the U.S. will have more masks than toilet paper. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing that makes me frustrated. It's like when the officials are telling you don't touch your face, but don't wear a mask. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense
Hmm.
to me. If you told me wear a
Exactly.
mask and don't touch your face, like between wearing a mask, and touching your face, I would think wear a mask is way more effective than don't touch
Right.
your face if your hands are clean, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It
So
covers 75% of your face.
yeah,
Depends on how big your face is, but typically
yeah. I mean,
covers a large
everyone.
area.
So so I was you know about the Origin Main that Jocko and one of his associates did, where they've got the gis and the what do you call it, jujitsu gear that they make in the
Mhm.
U.S.
What's it called?
Origin Main.
Okay.
And so what they said is that they're switching a lot of their production into making masks,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have the filters, but they've got a space for the filter inside the mask.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I ordered a couple of those, and I read this other thing. This doctor in New Jersey, who's a surgeon, and she doesn't have enough masks and whatever. So what she's done is she's obviously, but doctors have to sew, right? So that on some level they're good at sewing. So what she
Mm-hmm.
does is she makes her own masks from cloth, and then she uses
Yeah.
vacuum filters to put in, sews them into the mask. So
Smart.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm actually I'm looking for vacuum filters that I'll put in. I've ordered one of those Origin Main masks. I'll put one of those filters in a mask till I can find the mask. That
Yeah.
seems better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've been frustrated. I can't find a mask. But okay, so let's say, thank you for answering these questions, because it's the kind of stuff that just drives me crazy. Um, right. So so let's fast forward a couple of months. So let's assume that we've stayed locked down, we flattened the curve to a certain extent, and now we've got as many masks as we need. So that's all coming. Somehow the toilet paper shortage. I still can't understand why there's issues with toilet paper, but I have a bidet, so I'm not overly worried about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Um,
Welcome to the world of bidet. That's I predict that will be a new trend for the future.
Well,
You know.
I've been on that for a few years, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so much better. I don't want to turn this into a whole, bidet enthusiasts, but it's a better experience. You're much cleaner, and you're not wasting a bunch of paper. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
100%.
yeah, so I'd recommend anyone who's worried about that. You can get on Amazon pretty reasonably priced, easy to install bidets. Uh,
Yeah, or if you can afford it or find it, or just rinse your butt in a shower.
yeah,
That's kind of the original idea. That's
yeah,
where it came from.
yeah.
You know.
So the one thing that we're good at is changing production to the things that are important. I read that there's the Budweiser plant in Van Nuys is now, they've got a whole line that are making hand sanitizers
Mm-hmm.
instead of beer.
Yeah.
As you said, I don't know that that's really necessary, but if people feel better
Mm-hmm.
getting hand sanitizer,
Mm-hmm.
knock yourself out. That's great.
Yeah, that might not help, but maybe drinking less alcohol will help at this point. Just
Sure.
generally, if you're healthier, have a better immune system, and alcohol is just, I mean, I love whiskey and all that, but it's not good for you,
Yep.
period.
Yep.
You know?
Okay, so getting back to our future state, like what this can look like, and how we can cope with this. So we everyone's got enough masks, and let's say 3 months from now, I'm hoping that just like anyone wants to find out if they're pregnant or their significant other is pregnant, you just get a $10 or less test, and in 15 minutes or less, you know whether you got it. So now we get to the point where you can test every person in the U.S. Do you think it's realistic that we'll have that within 3 months?
I don't know to that one, you know, and the reason is even the mask. I don't think we'll have enough mask in 3 months. It's just impossible, you
Why is
know.
that impossible?
Um,
I believe you when you say N95, but just masks of any kind.
I'm doubtful. I'm doubtful because the whole world needs it, right? And who makes it, right? And do you have enough raw material to build this? And do you have enough hardwares to build these masks? You know, I'm doubtful that we'll have enough even in 3 months of masks. Um, and the test kits, you know, I'm feeling very frustrated with how uh, the U.S. is reacting to the crisis by not having enough test kit at this point. You know, we have the best pharmaceutical company and the smartest mind in the world, and we don't have enough test kit. How is that possible? You know, so yeah, maybe in 3 months we'll have enough to test everyone, and that'll be amazing. You
So
know.
let's say, for the sake of argument, we do, whether that's 3 months or 6 months, whenever it is.
Hmm.
I'm I'm betting the manufacturing capability of the U.S. will come back. You have
Hmm.
There's a lot of, I spent part of my career in manufacturing,
Hmm.
so I know there's a lot of know-how here, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of people that can do that. So maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that when the manufacturers, let's put it this way: if you're a manufacturer manufacturing something that is non-essential, then you can't go back to work. If somehow you can move your plant from being an underwear plant to a mask plant,
Hmm.
then you have, you'll make more money, and you'll have, a better situation. Now, we have outsourced a lot of our manufacturing capacity to China and to other low cost producers, but we do, it's all the people that know how to do that are still here. There are people
Hmm.
that are here. So it may take longer than I'm optimistic that we can, but I
Hmm.
know that everyone that can do it is focusing on it, and we're ramping up. And what I do know about the United States is sometimes it takes us a bit to get our act together, but once we focus, um, we get really good at focusing. So let's set aside whether it's 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. At some point soon, and we're working to make it as quickly as possible, we're going to have enough tests, and we're going to have enough masks, and
Hmm.
we'll probably have some other innovations that, I know that we've got all these cruise ships that aren't doing very much, and I can easily see them becoming floating hospitals for any of our, for LA, for San Francisco, for New York, and so we'll be able to increase the number of beds if we can increase the number of ventilators, which I know we're feverishly working on. Maybe
Hmm.
feverishly is not the right word, but so let's say that starts to come online. What do things look like in terms of getting? So I was looking at the numbers for recovered because I'm trying to figure out what happens once you cycle through and people are at least immune to this particular strain.
Hmm.
Can they go back to work? What happens if, let's say, one of our friends, I don't know who they are, but you say that there are some, they go through it, and a month from now they're better. Can they interact with me and you, or do they have to? If you've got the virus, you got to stay away. Are they contagious once they've recovered?
I don't think they will be contagious, just like the flu.
Right.
Um, Once you recover, you're not contagious. You won't be. You have the antibody in your body, so depends on act the disease. You know, some disease will they they're trying to detect the virus itself. Some disease they will try to detect the antibodies that's produced by the body to fight off these viruses. So they still have the antibodies, but not the virus. So they won't
Okay.
be contagious, right?
Okay. So if
And
you're, go ahead.
so, but the thing with this like flattening the curve is, I mean, if you look at the curve, it also is assuming that there will be like a percentage of the population who are sick the whole time when you're doing the social distancing, right? So it's flatten
Oh,
the curve, but you have this long period of time where maybe 10% or 20% of the people are with the
sick.
virus.
Yep.
So if we have a test kit that's cheap enough and fast enough, I think we'll be able to identify these individuals a lot more efficiently, and isolate them in a very efficient manner, right?
Right.
And so I think that will be a key benefit to having these test kits around.
Right.
Yeah.
My point being, once we've got test kits, and
Mm-hmm.
we can and anyone that needs it, not everyone that needs it, anyone that wants to be tested, or we could just test everyone. So let's say we get to the point where, okay, someone's had the disease and they've recovered. So
Mm-hmm.
if you are, um, whatever business you're in, so let's say what business has been shut down? Let's say movie theaters. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so let's say you have 10 people who work in a movie theater. If you have 5 of them that have recovered, it's no problem having them be open and have the movie theater open, right?
Yes.
And then anyone who's recovered can go see the movie, right? So they get back to normal, non-essential, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as you have kids and you have people that can prove, again, this is the assumption that you can't catch it again, okay, which
Mm-hmm.
we'll find out soon enough, right? But
Yeah.
and let's say that within a 6-month time frame, we're working with one strain, right? It's the same strain working it through.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, within 3 months, things can start to approach normality. You've got enough masks so that you're slowing the spread. You're helping to really flatten the curve. U.S. looks more like Taiwan. You have people who are recovered, and I bet you there'll be some apps that'll be able to say like, um, so no,
Oh.
yes,
Get tested.
that's actually some tea going down the wrong pipe, but um, okay. So what I'm trying to envision, what I'm trying to work with you to envision is, what does it look like for us to get to more like normal? What does it look like for us to get more like Taiwan, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get to the point where we've got enough masks for everyone. Maybe for healthcare workers, they have the N95, and for the non-healthcare workers, they have something, right? You get
Mm-hmm.
people who are the less urgent people. Maybe someone like me just gets a surgical mask. It's
Mm-hmm.
that's not the high-end mask, and everyone starts wearing masks and cuts it down. And we start to identify people who are recovered. Um, what can you help? Help me paint a picture? What does that look like?
Well, I think we don't even need to wait for that to happen to have a normal life. Right? And I think the key is to be able to track like who's really sick, right? The reason we're stopping all the non-essential activity is because we really don't know who is sick or not,
Right.
right? So I think as soon as we have that capability to know who is sick and who's not, we can really go back to the non-essential or essential activities like sending kids back to school, right?
Okay. So if we
Or
had test kits, we don't all have to be at home like this.
no, I think if everyone knows if they're sick or not, and they're willing to take the sacrifice, or the government need to enforce the quarantine, and then a lot of people can in fact go back to normal activities. Uh,
Okay, so I mean, you
yeah.
can. So the other piece that we would really need is some certification. I mean, when AIDS first came up, and when that it went from a free for all sexually to people really wanting each other tested. When you
Mm-hmm.
get into a new relationship, it became very important to show your tests and go, okay, this is I've been tested recently, and here's my test.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be similar to that. Great.
Right,
You
right.
want to come to this activity, you need to show that you were tested this week or tested, whatever the rules would be.
Yeah.
Great. You can go back to work. If you want to have the shop, you got to make sure that whoever, someone's been tested and they're clean.
Hmm. Right. And don't forget that one of another piece of stopping the spreading of AIDS besides the testing is wearing condoms or
Right.
protection.
Right.
So that's another important piece. You can say, yeah, condom doesn't help 100% of the time, but you know, people still wear them for protection because it works.
So the condoms is the masks in this case.
I guess. Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah, it is. And the difference between AIDS and COVID-19 is you don't like AIDS is like, yes, you need some specific activities like having sex or you sharing a needles to get the disease, but this really can spread through air and coughing or breathing, that kind of stuff. So it's actually, it's
Much more
more,
contagious.
much more contagious. Yeah. Um,
So in Taiwan, they're not in lockdown now. It's much more normal.
well, kids still go to school. People still go to work. And I think one of the main pieces is what the government is doing. But I have to say, it's a lot smaller country. So right now, it looks like they're able to track almost, I will say, 95% of people who are actually sick with the virus. So, for example, if I go back to Taiwan now, they will take a nasal swab, and then I have to go to quarantine. I have to take this like a quarantine taxi. So they will disinfect me and my luggage and put my stuff in the taxi. Only one person is allowed to one vehicle, and they'll take me to the location where there is a room in my parents' house or a apartment that someone owns. My and I'll be quarantined there for 14 days, right? So they're taking these measurement to make sure that whoever is sick is being tracked, and you can't leave your house. You have to stay home, and they have people like calling and checking on you like every day, you know.
So it's not
So,
really practical to do that in the size of country that the U.S. is what you're
well,
saying.
if you believe that our government works, it doesn't really need to come down at a federal level, but maybe at a city level or district level. I believe we have enough technology. You don't like the check-in. You don't even need a human to do it. You can have AI to do a check-in. You can install an app to the phone to voluntarily to be tracked where you are at all time. It really takes effort for everyone to stop this, and there might be some sacrifices that we all need to take.
That's where you get into the cultural thing.
Yeah.
In Taiwan, people are much more culturally likely to accept that.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, it's the government sometimes they'll do they'll do like a social shaming on on people who don't comply, right?
Right.
And that's a big thing, and I don't love it. I don't think that's the right way to do it. Um, but sometimes some people just don't fucking care, and they have the virus and still go travel and still go join
Right.
social events, and that sucks. And
Right.
these people, we need to have a way to stop that.
Well, the other thing in Taiwan is that you don't have maybe I've never been to Taiwan, so I could be wrong, but I think that it's not multiple cultures. There's much more of one culture. So, um, and
Yeah.
and from what I can tell, it's much more of a compliant culture,
Hmm.
um, which we don't have so much here in the United States. Which a
Right.
lot of times that's a good thing, but for this virus, it's particularly difficult for non-compliance with those
Yeah.
measures.
Yeah. There's always two sided things, like United States it's a truly a free country. That's why I love about living in United States. And in Taiwan, even though we have freedom of speech and we have democracy, but we don't really enjoy the same level of freedom as people here. So it's a duality of things, like when you have this much freedom and people, yeah, they don't comply. It's like, fuck you, you can tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So that's what we're dealing with. It's not good or bad. It's just what we're dealing with. And so we have to find out a way that works for people here, you know. So I and I have to bring this up, that for this to have like a long-term cure, or to put a stop on this, maybe vaccination is the way to go. This is a tough thing to talk about, because personally, I don't like vaccinations. I have seen what vaccines do to my kids. Kind of trigger his like a skin rash and all that, and fever. I don't love it, but looking at the human history, it is a powerful solution. Like just like anything that the government do to everyone, it always affect a small percentage of people and don't serve them well. But this might be the way to go, because if we're afraid of coronavirus coming back the next year with different mutations, it still affect the same population or the same people. Maybe they'll come out with a vaccine that will just prevent coronavirus from spreading.
So I've heard that the vaccine is 18 months away.
Yeah, well, or sooner. I mean, there are already vaccines out there, in China or different countries. I wouldn't, from a selfish point of view, I wouldn't do them until I see what they do, to the people who got it.
Right.
But yeah, it's coming, and when a vaccine that come that fast, there's some shortcut they have to take with the FDA and all that. So there are risks. So,
Well, I get the risk, but so how much of the 18-month is testing and how much of the 18-month is development?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's they're equally important, to find the right strand of, or the target group you want to target the virus, because you want to target something that's very common, right? Even with mutation, you can still target it. And that takes time to try, and then you have to test for safety, minimum safety issues, and that's always, you don't know what's the long-term effect, the short-term effect. You can catch a short-term effect, but how about the long-term ones? Like, nobody knows. But for people who are older, maybe it's worth the risk, right? Because if they're in their 70s, and they probably don't worry about the super long term, like 20-30 years effect of the vaccines, and
Right.
the benefit really outweigh the risk. So maybe start from there. I don't know.
Like they give my mom the flu shot. I go, I give it to her. She's 92.
Yeah.
The long-term effects
Right.
I'm not worried about.
Right.
But
Right.
what I'm so in the software development game, we have an expression. There's only so much we can speed things up. 9 women won't be able to produce a baby in a month. You can't add. There's a critical path. You can't make a baby much faster than 9 months, right? And so that's what I'm really trying to understand when I see 18 months. How much? I know the FDA has a very long process, which might be justified in normal means. In this case, I'm okay with them cutting some corners, but how much cutting corner is going to help, and how much cutting corner really isn't going to help you.
Right. I actually think that because coronavirus is not a new thing, right? We had the SARS, we have the MERS, and other similar viruses before. I believe a certain lab already have something that's close to the end product. They already they didn't just start yesterday. They started maybe 10 years ago. So I have confidence that they already have something that might work already. They just need more time to make sure it's safe enough for the general population.
And that's where flattening the curve will help you. If you can get a vaccine, then if you get, so the two things I'm really hearing is the vaccine and testing. We get those two things, we're going to have a lot more ability to get more normal.
Yeah. And plus the general awareness of protecting yourself and others when you get sick or when you're not sick, because I go to the supermarket and, can you tell who's sick and who's not? Like, you can't. So I think people need to change their attitude toward this awareness of protecting yourself and others by putting on mask.
Yeah.
It's not a popular idea right now, but I think that will change.
It's popular with me. I ordered one for me, one for my girlfriend.
Yeah,
And I don't know what I'm going to put in the little, if nothing else, I'll put cloth. I'll wear it as a cloth. Maybe it's only 25% or 35% effective.
yeah,
That's better than nothing.
for
And
sure.
as soon as I can find some vacuum filter or some sort of thing to put in there, I'll put that in there, right?
Right.
And maybe it's 50% effective. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's a placebo. I don't know what to tell you.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
until I got an N95, I'm going to do what I can to protect
Yeah.
myself.
And it's hard to wear a 95 the whole day. It's just almost
Well,
impossible.
just when you go out,
Just
right?
when
I
you go
mean,
out.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess if you're a construction worker, it looks like wearing that the whole day. But
Hmm.
if you're, like when I'm really, what I really want it for is when I go shopping.
Hmm.
So,
Yes, I agree.
I'm not as worried when I go for a walk. I try and avoid, being within 6 feet of anybody. And this may sound strange, but like when someone comes to pass me on the street and I see them coming up, I hold my breath while they pass me and then I exhale.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I
I
do
mean,
that too.
I wonder how effective that is. I was passing by a couple of people smoking weed, and
Hmm.
I'm already, 20 feet past them, and I'm still smelling the weed. So I'm like,
Mm. Yeah.
well,
There you go.
you know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so how effective is that? I don't know, but
Yeah. Right now, I think based on the observation, people are not getting sick from just walking past by each other.
right.
Usually they get it from going to attending a conference, or in Korea, like a religious group gathering.
Yeah, yeah.
There was this huge religious group who think their God will protect them, and it didn't. It caused a
Yeah.
major spread of the disease.
Well, the same thing with there's certain sects of Orthodox Jewish.
Hmm.
Like in Israel, the whole country's locked down. There's a
Hmm.
certain sect of Hasidic, not all Orthodox, but a certain sect of them. They're the ones where um, there were cars of police that trying to announce stay off the streets, get off the streets, and there were people blocking the cars
Hmm.
from going into. And you just see like the street, it just drives me crazy. And I understand from my Muslim friends that there's certain versions of Muslim religious people that have the same thing. It's like,
Yeah,
you
even
know,
here, like you can see these
churches. Yeah,
preachers from mega churches. It's like, this is a safe place, safest place you can be till someone gets sick.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I heard some of them say even, don't stop giving us money. If you lose your job, that's okay, but the most important money you send is to us.
Of course.
I don't know
Of
what to tell you,
course.
but
Yeah.
I know in New York there were some religious weddings where people are still having their weddings, and I'm just like, but I mean, it's not any particular type of religion.
No, it's
you
not.
know,
It's just human behaviors.
yeah, and some of them are like, "Oh, I don't care." I mean, I see people on the street who are smoking, and I'm like, on the one hand, I'm like, how that's, if you can at all not smoke now would be a good idea. I'm not telling you shouldn't
Hmm.
smoke, but like, don't
Hmm.
make your lungs vulnerable.
Yeah.
But
Smoking is actually a very significant factor. Like the studies done in China, because they're the first one who have this, is like you really targets older men that smokes. That's just significantly higher than any other population with
and is
the.
it and is it tobacco, weed,
I think
cigar,
most of them they don't smoke weed there, so just tobaccos. Yeah.
and any distinction between cigar and cigarette or pipe, or
I don't know. I'll suspect it's mostly cigarettes. Yeah,
okay,
cigarettes. It's because
what goes into the lungs?
right, what goes in the lung, and it's the majority. So not a lot of. I don't think there's a high population that smokes cigars. So it's mostly cigarettes. Yeah.
Okay. Um, but generally, you should do what you can to stay healthy. Any of the vices you have, if you can avoid having them, whether it's alcohol or different things, just
Yeah, getting enough sleep. It's really just common sense, like just go back to kindergarten, and remember what your parents taught you. Wash your hands. Wash your hands and
Wash your face.
wash your face. Get enough sleep. Get enough nutrition. Don't drink. Don't smoke. Um,
I hear
get.
have extra sex with your not
I
with
don't
not
know
with me.
about that one yet.
Well, that's what I
Well,
tell my girlfriend, so I don't know
well,
if Shh, don't say anything.
right. Well,
You're a
like
PhD. You should know.
right. Well, there's this company called like Pornhub, right? They're giving
Yeah,
like free
I've
access
never heard
to
of them.
right, and this is the first time I heard about it on news too. And they're actually
Yes,
giving like free access to the Italians, like certain cities who are in
and to
quarantines, like
healthcare workers. Yes,
right, just stay home and watch porn, and they're doing their part to help
see,
the the human race. What a what a beautiful way to serve.
very altruistically. All right.
Yeah.
Well, so I tell you what, you've answered. You've been very gracious, answered all my questions. Is there any conversation about this you want to have? What do you think we should have talked about? We haven't talked about yet.
Um, yeah, there are many things. I mean, I've been thinking about how this crisis. Uh, we talk about the bad side of the coronavirus, right? Death, sickness, no work, no money, no school, driving all the parents crazy. But what are the hidden blessings? I've been thinking about that. What are the we think about how this will crash the economy. We kind of briefly touch on it, right? And I think that's down the back of your head. But what would it do to the human race for the better after the end of the crisis? And I think that's also important, right? Because we're kind of all paying for this, both financially, mentally, physically. Like we can't go work out, you know. But
Yeah,
what's gonna be the
I haven't swam in I don't know maybe a month now, right? You know
right,
as well.
right, and I can't do yoga. That's killing me, Um, I mean, I can do at home, but it's different than go to the class and have a life instruction.
Yeah.
But what's a blessing that will come out of this, And
Well,
what's
you,
your take
you
on it?
well, you know that I want to keep this podcast non-political.
Hmm.
But let me touch on it this way. I think there's an opportunity for us not to be so split
Hmm.
like there's an opportunity for us to remember that we're all human beings and that
Hmm.
everyone's susceptible to the virus, and maybe coming together in these kind of emergencies remind us what's important, and we don't focus so much on our differences. So I think that's one big opportunity. Another
Hmm.
opportunity is I think that we've seen the blessings of globalization, but we haven't in some of the economists that I follow, one of the issues where a lot of companies are going too much for profits, and they forget ideology for a second, right?
Hmm.
If you don't take a look at tail risk, you know what I mean by tail risk, like um, you look at what happened with Katrina, right? If you
Hmm.
do your planning for 100, they say that there's 100-year storm, that Katrina was 100-year storm. But guess what? You keep going year after year after year after year. One day, 100 years is going to be up.
Hmm.
If you don't take into account the 1% risk, then when it hits you 1 out of 100 times, you're in deep doo doo. So when we look at all so for example, it's wonderful that we can shift manufacturing all sorts of places, but I think every country, not the United States, you should have your own local supply of pharmaceuticals. You should have your own anything
Hmm.
that's critical. You got to take a look at the things in your own country and go, if we not just in your own country but your own region. New York is an important enough region. LA is an important enough. You look at the different, California, the different geographical regions. you've got to assess the risk. What happens if you have certain risk? And you got to take a look at your country, each country, each region of the country, each area. Okay, are we cutting things too thin? And what is the
Mm-hmm.
disadvantage of it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we haven't been looking at our risks well enough. So I'm very much
Mm-hmm.
hoping that this will give us an opportunity to be smarter about our risks and allow us to look. Um, just remember that the things that happen 1% of the time will actually happen, and 1% is not
Mm-hmm.
that small. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. What do you think?
100%. 100%. Um, I'm with you on that, man. 100%. I think it would be good to bring back some of the essential manufacturing to United States. Uh, and by essential, I'm not even talking about the mask, right? Right now, there's a serious shortage of a lot of the medication for a patient who needs it on a daily basis. They're mostly manufactured in India and China, and because the workers are there, are the factory are shutting down, and people are getting sick. There is a serious shortage of supply of these generic medicines.
Yep.
Um, are we able to have enough manufacturing in the United States to supply the whole U.S. without hurting, other important things we do here? I don't know, but that's definitely the area needs to be re-evaluate and look at, you know. And are we putting enough money into the infrastructure of certain states where they, you know, um, have enough manpower but are not manufacturing anything? Can we shift our focus and shifting where we invest in funding to do those and better the whole country? I think that's something we need to look at. And even our neighboring countries, how can we build relationship with them? Like even Puerto Rico, I was reading, I forgot, they're actually supplying the US with something major, uh, uh, and I think they were hurt by some catastrophe a while ago, right? I forgot what it was. It was like a tornado or something.
Right.
And because of that, the capacities are going down, right? So how do we support our allies and for them to do better and to go through this crisis? It will come again, like you said, 1%, but there's a lot of 1%, right? Whether it's the weather 1% or disease 1%, like there's a lot of 1%, and add it all up, it might come every year. We might have a different crisis every year. So how do we build allies and friendship with other countries to go through this together? That kind of thing. I
For
think
sure.
it's yeah.
One of the things that when I read military tactical history, one of the things that happens is if looking at the United States or Britain, if they spend 20, 30 years without in peace, what happens is the kinds of people that get promoted to become generals in the army becomes more political, and the kind of
Mm,
people that are good at what happens in a war. You've got certain people, and whether you're talking about Patton or MacArthur or any of the famous generals that you study, they have in Israel. You've got Ariel Sharon. Um, if you read the histories of like the 6 Day War, and because my dad lived through all that, and he was he knew the players. We talk about it, and we see like you have people that might be, they're good at when you're in peacetime, they're good at the political side of it, and it's important, right? But um, the kinds of people that fight your wars effectively when you really need it, you give them more leeway. And this is so. How does this apply for this kind of a thing, right? When you look at the
mhm,
FDA and you look at the kind of things
mm,
that you want in terms of when you say like no, when there's no virus, you call that peacetime. I don't know what the good term
mhm,
would be, but in normal circumstances, you want a level of safety, quote unquote, from your FDA, because the risk is much higher. If you might kill 30, 40, 50 people, right? But when you're looking at the number of people that are going to die anyway, and the faster you get, you do a different kind of calculation in risk. And so, a lot of the rules and regulations that we have,
Mm-hmm.
you look at a regulation why someone who is licensed to be a doctor in California, they might
Mm-hmm.
not be allowed to be a doctor in Kentucky, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Well, right now, if you have someone that can handle an emergency room in Kentucky, do you really care that they're
Mm-hmm.
not board certified in California? Now, maybe there's a good reason. Some of those regulations might be stupid in any case. Others, there might be a really good reason. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not an expert in that. I don't know. But I know right now, if you don't get the maximum number of doctors, you got to get them in there, and you got to get them, as long as they hit a certain bare minimum, get them in there, have them work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a
Yeah,
lot of
Italy
things
is
like that.
already doing that. Yeah, I think there's like you don't have to pass the board exam to work in the healthcare right now. I
Right.
guess that's needed. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we
Hey,
don't
can
get
I
to the
take
point.
a 1 minute break? Can I take a 1 minute break and you can keep talking? I just need to use the restroom. It's
Yeah,
emergency.
I'm gonna pause. Hold on.
Okay,
And through the magic of Zoom, you zoom
we're,
through.
we're back from my piss break. Yeah. Did you see the video that this poor woman maybe was using Zoom for her first time? And she was in a group meeting with her colleagues. And she probably thought she was stopping the video, and she brought her computer with her to the restroom, and she took off her pants and started peeing, and everyone's like shouting no. And like she kind of found out like last second, but it's not last second, it's already too late. She's like, oh shit, close the
No,
screen. But it's like everyone saw her already. She was like in front of like at least 25 people,
I
and
have
she just
not
like
heard
everyone
that
saw
one.
her moving her screen
I have not
and
heard
put it in
that
front
one.
of the toilet, took off her pants. So that was.
No, I have not heard that.
You have her. Oh, you'll see it sooner or later. It's out
Okay.
there.
Well, yeah, I've heard similar stories, but I'm sure, as people are discovering the beauties of video conferencing,
Mm-hmm.
um, you and I have been doing video conferencing for years, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people haven't before. I mean, one of the things, as you know, I've been doing some training classes in
Mm-hmm.
person, and I love the in-person aspect of it, but I've been having to experiment with Zoom, and it's not as effective. But when you're going back to the conversation about what blessings there will be, I can see, living anywhere, and if training by Zoom or by video conference takes off, and people get more used to it, and don't have a problem doing it, I
Mm-hmm.
could see, it's a whole new thing I could wind up doing, because the stuff the negotiation skills, and the other courses that I'm able to give, instead of, having it a hobby is in person. If I can effectively do it by video conferencing, that could
Yeah,
turn into a really good thing.
it will definitely be a new trend. People not only want to learn, and people have a craving for human interaction. So, a lot of people are installing Zooms, and you can see their stock going up like crazy.
Yes,
So
definitely. So
this will be a thing. Yeah.
yeah. What else do you see?
What else do I see? Um, I'm still in the process of thinking it through. Like for the past few weeks, I've only think about what are we gonna do at this current moment. Um, but
See,
I
I think.
think
Go ahead.
but I think it's important for us to think about what are we gonna do to rebuild our community and everything after this. I'm not there yet, but I'm thinking about it. I think a lot of basic human behavior will change, right? For example, Zoom. I think Zoom will be super popular even after the crisis. People just realize we don't really need to go to a restaurant and sip a cup of coffee together. I mean, this can be intimate if we just have our intention to make it to be, you know,
Yep.
and still get things done and much more efficiently. Maybe we don't need to travel as often. we can spend more time with our loved ones at home
Yeah.
without flying to different places, and just do it this online. And there will be better technology that yeah, maybe we'll be doing this 3D, in a virtual way, and better acoustic, so it feels more real, just like feel like you're really talking in front of me,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Well, like even these backgrounds, like you're going real. That's your real house behind you.
Hmm.
I I know a lot of people think I live in the Norton Simon because I love the Norton Simon, but the background that I have is actually a picture I took. There's another background I really like, but it doesn't show as well. My favorite sculpture in the Norton Simon is the tub,
Hmm.
and this was a Rodin, not Rodin, a Degas exhibition picture that I took, and part of the reason I like for this My Corona, I like using these backgrounds is since I can't visit these different places that I love in LA, it's kind of like every episode I try and pay homage to a different part of LA that I love,
Mm.
and so
Yeah.
um,
In the background, no, please finish what you're saying.
no. So the other thing is that um, like if someone was going by naked behind me, you wouldn't be able to see them. So in one world, it's like, well, people once they get more educated, it won't be a problem. But in another, it's like it's a real good protection. Like if you use these kind of backgrounds, the other, my brother has a background that's branded for his company, and as
Mm.
that becomes more normal, it becomes it could
You can
become
run advertisement in the background. That would be a new
yeah,
business model.
for sure. I mean,
You know. Yeah.
advertisers out there, if you want to advertise, obviously the Corona beer company, if they'd like to advertise my Corona, I can be bought for sure. Um, but the other thing I was getting to around, blessings. So what you were saying about doing this kind of thing, I have many friends in New York, in Israel, and I do talk to them,
Hmm.
but I'm thinking, why not interview them? Why not talk to them?
Hmm.
A good friend of mine is a doctor in New York, and if he's got the time, I'd love to have him on there. I want to know. Now he used to be an ER doctor. Now
Hmm.
he works in allergies, but I'm curious on his perspective and what he's doing and what his practice looks like and what life in New York
Mm.
is like. And so this kind of thing is possible. But
Yeah.
also once we get in the habit of doing this, I know you were already doing this with your family. You were FaceTiming with them,
Hmm.
but and I could do that with my phone, but I think the experience of standing in front of your computer, like this is more intimate. This maybe intimate's not the right word, but you know I love when we spend together when we're actually in the same physical space, sitting in front of a fire, or you know back when we would have alcohol and just have a good glass of whiskey. Nothing is gonna make up for that, but this feels very much like our conversations. So there is a quality to it, and there's no reason why I can't talk to my friends on the other side of the country or in Europe or what have you. And I think as we realize more of this, it's only going to be a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like I have this kind of, I call it mental barrier to do a podcast virtually or over Zoom before.
Yeah,
I always want to interview my guest in person. But now, after these few weeks, I kind of changed my mind. I will probably start doing a podcast via Zoom. I think it's just as good, and it's really the best we can do at this moment.
they're not as good, but they're good
Mhm.
enough.
Good enough. Yeah, good enough. And it's really just. But what's the thing that I didn't think about is now I'm open to talk to people who are not in the same city as me.
Exactly.
And I can talk to people in New York and in Boston, or who are just too far away from me to drive here in LA traffic.
Yeah.
Now we can do this, so it really opened more possibility. And also with the art behind you, it's really also got me thinking now that now we're all working from home. A lot of us are working from home, and or some people are getting cut in their paid hours. I really think there will be a booming of artists and like human self-expression after the crisis, because now we are spending more time with ourselves. Maybe it's a good time to start doing the project you always wanted to do, right? Writing a book, singing music, learn how to dance or play drums, like things that really make you happy, you know. um, or getting onto the project you've been wanting to do forever, but you know, at work you're spending all this time with office politics and pretending you're working hard. Now you don't have to do that. You
Yeah,
can actually spend an hour or 2 hours a day to work on the projects that you love. And you know, like we're doing podcasts more, you know, I'm working on my projects. I think these are all the blessings that come with this crisis.
yeah.
Yeah.
We had Kevin Bass on the podcast the other day, and he was talking about how he's cleared out his garage. He's creating a workbench. He's going back and working on some drones and you know projects at home, and he's making the best of it. I'm sure you and I are going to see some robots that he builds at home, or some custom drones or what have you. I don't know what he's going to do, but
Hmm.
it should be pretty interesting when we get to see him again.
For sure.
That's
Yeah.
for sure. I know that in some of the classroom settings, I'm learning how to deal with a Zoom, having a Zoom conference with 20 or more students. I never thought that that was possible, and learning how to do that when they're not, when they're not in front of you. I'm definitely learning some new skills, and it's going to make a difference. And I can see how um, we can create events virtually that no one had the skills to do before.
Mm-hmm.
So I do this enough for a couple of months. I'm going to have, I'm already percolating some things that I can create that it never occurred to me that I could create before.
Mm.
So definitely you know, it's only recently that I really saw that I have a possibility of teaching and training, as more than just a little side hobby. So
Mm.
that's something I'm going to definitely be exploring and seeing how to give that via video conferencing. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. The other thing is, I hear a lot of people predicting another baby boom.
Yeah, it definitely crossed my mind to make more babies. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd like some more nieces and nephews. So if you could do
Uh,
that, hopefully we'll have hockey back so I can train them in hockey properly.
I think that will be enough. Yeah.
You think so?
And another thing is people might have a different um, awareness about health. You know, just hey, like how am I gonna survive this better than the old me yesterday? Is really maybe get off certain medication, being more healthy, how to stay active without the gym, and just eat healthier, less. I've been eating less because going to the supermarket is such a risk for me. So I'm just like, I'm just gonna eat a little less. I don't really need that much food. Um, or I'm doing fasting today, so I save myself another day of going to the supermarket. And I think that will also be better for the whole human race. You know.
Yeah. Well, one thing I haven't tried actually, but I would think having food delivery
Mm.
uh,
Yeah,
would be a good idea.
that's a that business must be booming like crazy right now.
For
Everyone's
sure.
getting food delivered. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I just worry about the people that don't have the ability to shift to virtual, and
Hmm.
they were already hurt so much in the economy. So I am worried about them, but don't know what to do other than worry. I'm going to have some of them on the podcast, some and see what's going on for them and what they're looking at.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There will be people right now all the in all the news and all that is, showing the celebrities or the royals getting sick, right? But when really people who are really doing all the grinding, doing all the farming in the factory, doing all the labor, and when 30% of them go down, we have a real problem. Like forget about the test kit and the market, the masks. I mean, we'll have a real problem with food supplies, and and they're really the one who will be affected the most. So
Yeah.
let's pray for that. Most of us stay healthy and recover from this soon.
All right. I'm aligned with that. So with the time remaining, why don't we talk a little bit about where you're going with your podcast, and you say that you're now looking at Zoom. What have you got on tap?
Well, I had a few guests lined up for my podcast 12 Summers. It's a podcast for fathers out there. I'm a father with young kids, and this podcast is really dedicated to fathers who have young kids before 12 years old. And a lot of awesome human beings want to talk to, but the limitation has been that we all need to carve out 2-3 hours of our time and do a little travel and be in the same physical location to talk. And right now we might shift it just to maybe make it shorter, and we can do it over Zoom, and we can talk about the reality, which is this, the virus that's going around, and maybe in the future some of us might lose our income. We'll talk about the real stuff. So it is still a podcast for fathers, but fathers are just human beings. We deal with the real human being issues. So that will keep going. I still have I have enough episode to inventory to be released bi-weekly, but we'll have some new ones very soon over Zoom. Yeah.
As soon as I figure out how to do the metadata, I'll link to it in this episode.
What's that?
As soon as I figure out how to, when I release this, I'll figure out how to link to the episode.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll get some help technically to do that.
Yeah. How do you upload your podcast? Like just briefly. Which service do you use?
Libsyn.
Libsyn. Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So it's in there in the metadata, and then I put out the video to YouTube. So.
No, I think Zoom will save it for you in video and audio file, so it should be really simple. Yeah,
it does. But it's a matter of getting it on all the platforms. That's the trick. So,
got it.
Yeah, but putting it in the metadata and what have you. So are you doing another podcast besides the 12 Summers?
Yeah, that's the major one I'm doing right now. Yeah.
And those of you that are interested, you've released the episode with me on it, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you're one of the early ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't had enough,
we talked a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. If you haven't had enough of listening to the two of us talk to each other and you want some more, then go to the 12 Summers. And in any case, check it out. Yinting is one of the best fathers I know, and very humble, and looks at some very interesting issues. So whether you're a father or you have a father, check out the podcast for sure.
Yeah. And thanks for allowing me to share this podcast on my podcast. And how can people find you in the ocean of all the podcasts? What do they just My Corona? Just how you how you spell it? My Corona.
Yep.
One word or two separate words?
Two separate words.
Like two words.
Two words.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
Okay.
And when we've posted it, I'll send you the link. So.
Okay. My Corona by Martin Devon.
There you go. Very good. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yeah, I enjoy the heck out of this. Yeah.
Me too. All right. Have a good night.
All right. All right. You too. Bye bye.